And look, we've had some really neat reaction and interesting reaction to this excellent piece that Yvonne van Dongen wrote about the charity industrial complex and just how many organisations engaged in work which is almost political, philosophical or advocacy work have charitable status in New Zealand. And it is something that Ben and I have found trying to get accountability for groups that are making policy in things like education, groups like Inside Out, a whole lot of groups that look like commercial enterprises and their charities. The Rainbow Tick people who make big money off the sort of mafia standover thing they do on diversity. They're a charity. They all come back to various charities or charitable trusts. And it has had me scratching my head for several years. So I was really glad to see Yvonne was taking an interest in the story. And then we find through her story, and I go back through the archives and I find our next guest has actually been into this and asking these sorts of questions and interrogating the charitable sector in New Zealand for a decade or more. His name is Dr. Michael Gousmett. He's from the University of Canterbury, and he joins us on the line now. Michael, do you mind if I call you Michael?
That's fine, Sean. Go ahead.
All right. Look, I really am so interested to talk to you because I went back and did some research on you. Now, you kind of come from having worked for a charity, right? Was it the Leprosy Foundation?
Yes, I was General Manager of the Pacific Leprosy Foundation for about 19 years. And it was through that I became interested in this issue of why don't charities pay income tax? So you do what you do, and after about a process over 7 or 8 years, I did a PhD to research that issue to find out what the origin of this concept was. And it goes all the way back to William Pitt in 1799, would you believe? And so there we start. And then we have a famous case in 1891, which defined what was understood to be a charitable purpose. And essentially that's trusts for the advancement of religion, trust for the advancement of relief of poverty, trust for the advancement of education, and other purposes beneficial to the community. So, Sean, if you wanted to set up a charitable trust tomorrow, you would need to conform under one of those particular heads. But
and I could just say I'm good for the community, and that would get me there.
Oh, absolutely. Go for it.
And what is the benefit of being a charity?
Well, the huge benefit, of course, is you pay no income tax. As far as the charity is concerned, the benefit, of course, is for the public and the good works that many charities do. But the issue I have, and what you're commenting on, I've been looking at for well over a decade now, writing numerous submissions to the Inland Revenue and the government on this issue, the tax working group and so on and so forth, arguing that it's time we sat down and had a conversation about charities that run commercial activities that are not related to their charitable purposes, but pay no income tax. Now, here's the beauty of it. In 2005, we had the Charities Act. So for the first time, we've been able to get access into the financial statements of these charities. Prior to that, it was very difficult, if not impossible. So you can now sit down, like I did last night. I thought, okay, I'll go into the charity register, because charities are required to file not only their financial statements, but they also complete an Excel-based template. And that template is a real useful little tool, because if you know how to do it, you can pull data off the register, and it gives you some information. So, for example, I looked last night at 6 different large charities that I'm well aware of, and looking just at their operating surplus. Now, this is just indicative, because I'm sure there are adjustments you could make for expenses you could claim as being deductible items. But nevertheless, what I found was that in 2023, those charities alone would have had, if they were in the tax regime, a tax liability of the order of $39 million. Wow. In 2022, that was of the order of $35 million. So we're talking over 2 years, nearly, $80 million.
And that's just 6 organisations. Well, let's take some examples. The Waiparara Trust has assets of $70 million or more.
Right. Yeah, well, they do. These organisations do it. And what I did also was, you can play around.
Oh, no, sorry, that's cash reserves of $70 million or more, not assets.
Well, I haven't got that figure in front of me, but to what I did also was I had a look at the entities with limited in their name the other day, and I found that there's about 1,325 entities that have it limited in their name. They had total equity of the order of $8.4 billion. That's B for billion dollars, with gross income of something like $5.2 billion. Now, I didn't actually look up what their net equity income might have been, but you can see straight away that obviously there are entities within that regime that are undertaking activities which, in my opinion, are not related to a charitable purpose, therefore should be paying income tax. Now, maybe I should just explain what I mean by that. I often use Christ College here in Canterbury as an example. Some years ago, Christ College had shares in a forestry.
Yeah.
Now, if Christ College used to send their young men up to the forestry to teach them how to grow straight pine trees, how to mill the trees and how to market them, I would consider that advancement of education under that 1891 classification.
Right.
But as far as I'm aware, Christ College didn't do that. Instead, the funds just go back into supporting their educational purposes. But in the meantime, that forestry is in competition with a chap down the road growing straight pine trees.
Who doesn't get the income-free status.
Exactly. And so my argument is that if we believe in tax equity and fairness, we need to be challenging that activity and asking, why should you not be paying income tax? Now, I actually wrote to Waikato Rapata Lands Trust Group, who had an operating surplus in 2023 of $39 million. I've sent them an extensive email in the middle of December and said to them, please explain to me why you should not pay income tax. It's now the 18th of January, and yes, we've had holidays, but I haven't had a reply, and I suspect I won't get a reply. But nevertheless, I will persevere, and I'll be sending my friends at Naitahi here in Christchurch a similar email and asking the same question. And probably Trinity Lands up in the Bay of Plenty, which runs kiwi fruit
Michael,
orchards,
I guess my
them.
naive view was that a charity was a charity because there was no money in doing good deeds. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, I can. And unfortunately, you are wrong. Charities are extremely wealthy in the main enterprises. For example, I had a look at the churches recently, and I found that over a 2-year period, the churches I selected, the mainstream churches, had increased their cash and investments, not land and buildings, just cash and investments, in 2 years by $249 million. Now, how does that happen? When we have such intense issues over mental health, we've got issues over poverty and housing, and yet we have mainstream churches accumulating cash at that rate when there is a desperate need there in the community for support.
Yeah.
So these organisations have charitable status. They pay no tax on their investment. They don't pay original withholding tax, like you or I might on our little investments. They pay no tax on that. They pay no tax on whatever trading activities that they undertake. So it's time we sat down and had a jolly good
Could
look
the
at that.
platform be a charity? I could say I'm doing good for society.
Yeah, well, you could.